Hey, good evening, everyone. I hope you haven't been waiting for long, and welcome to our online webinar lecture series by Advances in Advertising. So, I know it's late at night, and right now it's 8:30, and I'm pretty sure all of us have the Monday blues now, but bear with me, and this is gonna be a fun ride, okay? Let's begin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, students, lecturers, industry personnel, and everyone from different parts of the world. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Hilmi. I'm a postgraduate student from USM Science KL School of Communication IMC Master Program, and I will be your moderator for this evening's webinar. Listening is the new asking from advertising and cultural perspective. I would also like to extend my welcome and gratitude to everyone who is able to spare their time to make it into tonight's session. As you all know, we have quite the diverse audience here watching live from China, Indonesia, and even all the way from Qatar to indulge in a discussion with our two industry expert panels joining us here tonight. Okay, so before we start, I would like to brief all of you on the background of our webinar. So this webinar is a lecture series organized by students under the course of YSE 514 Advances in Advertising. A little shout out to Dr. Izal, who is the supervisor of the event, who helps to oversee the preparation and improve the overall flow and quality of the event. Thank you very much, Dr. Izal. Okay, so into our topic of discussion. All of us who have gone through the pandemic have realized that our activity during the pandemic has shifted tremendously, whereby we are actively more present online rather than offline and being exposed to values entirely different from ours. In result of that, we see an increase of consumer power and opinions that significantly affects our brand and product image. Aside from that, the emergence of cross-cultural environment that company and brands have to watch out for. Therefore, social listening is the effort to track and examine what people are saying about your brands in the media. And conversational advertising is the use of automated natural language conversation between brands and consumer. So these two instruments allow you as a brand representative to acknowledge the consumer's existence and find useful, insightful information for many decision-making wise in your operations and also allows you to improve on your online front-end experience to better your consumers' buying journey. So, in tonight's webinar, we shall discuss the significance of these instruments and apply a practical solutions that would benefit you and your brand from a marketing and cultural perspective. And in line with our objectives, we hope that all of you here by the end of the night will discover and recognize key consumer insights in conversational advertising and social listening for decision making and gaining competitive advantage for your brand in a consumer centric direction. So, this webinar is also free for everyone to live stream from Facebook and YouTube. Whether you are a student or a lecturer or work entirely in a different field, all of you have the opportunity to be exposed to local and international conversation advertising and social listening methods and first-hand input from our industry expert here tonight to spark some ideas and interest into this field. Okay, and a little bit about tonight's agenda. So we have started at 8:30 p.m. and we will have two topics of discussion. The first would be conversational advertising, and then we move on to social listening. So each discussion would be for about 25 minutes each, plus 10 minutes Q&A, and after this session, and hopefully we would be done by 10 p.m. Okay, so I uh, this is the part where you've been waiting for. So before we start our first session, let me introduce you to our two panelists for tonight. Okay, first panelist, we have Anchi Sofwan Mahmood, Awesome Media Network Head News Operation. So, Sofwan Mahmoud here has almost 20 years of working in the media broadcasting field. He is innovative and highly organized senior management with extensive experience in leading operations, planning strategy, event, and risk assessment in the biggest Malaysia media company. He is graduated from Senior Management Program of Business Administration and Management from Harvard University, and also he has an MBA from Zurich University of Bern, Switzerland. Hello, Sofwan. How are you doing tonight? I think your mic is turned off.
Sorry, my bad. Thank you so much for having me. I'm good. I'm fine. It's
All right.
wonderful to be here.
Okay, it is a pleasure to have you here tonight. So please give a few words or maybe one interesting fact about yourself to everyone watching right now. Sofwan?
Well, I've been in industry for a long time, but I'm still learning. This new social media stuff is still new for me, and I'm like a kid learning new toy.
Oh, wow. Even at your age, you're still learning stuff, especially like social media, right?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Sofwan. Okay, now we have our second panelist, Mr. D. McLean Brody. He is the head of public affairs from Qatar Foundation. So he has more than 10 years experience working in public relation and communication field. His expertise includes strategic communication, internal relations, public relation, media relation, and even social media as well. He is also multilingual. He speaks English, French, and even Chinese. So some of you who are watching from China, do keep this in mind. So McLean here has a degree in the Master of Arts in Asia Pacific Policy Studies from the University of British Columbia. And he is a graduate of Asia Pacific Leadership Program from the University of Hawaii. Hello, McLean. How is it going there?
Perfect. Thank you for having me this evening, and thank you everybody for joining. I'm glad
It's
to be
our
a part of the
pleasure.
panel.
All right. So thank you for being here tonight. Please give a few words or maybe one interesting fact about yourself to everyone watching right now.
Well, I think you caught me with the introduction. I feel a bit of an interloper in some places.
Oh,
I've worked with Ogilvy, which is one of the largest public relations and advertising groups in the world, for
oh,
over 10 years. My specific area of focus tends more towards the social, conversational side and less so on the marketing. So I'm really interested in hearing some of what someone has to say and to have a chance to dig into some of the marketing aspects of what we want to talk about with social.
all right. Will do, McLean. Thank you so much. Okay, so there you go. Here we have amazing panelists joining us here tonight. And some of you who are watching live from Facebook or YouTube, don't hesitate to give your thoughts and questions on the chat box, and we will go through them during the Q&A session. So, without further ado, let's start with our first topic of discussion, conversational advertising. Okay, so conversational advertising is the use of automated natural language conversation between brands and consumers to drive awareness, purchase intent, or consideration, and even to conversion. So the implication of this is to automate consumer inquiries in real-time feedback and interactions. The data-driven and fast response provided by AI chatbot could improve the satisfaction during the consumer learning experience by maintaining a consistent and engaging conversation with the consumers. I'm pretty sure everyone here has searched for certain products or services online, and where you need more answers to your questions, you will come across this, where you thought you were speaking to someone, but it turns out you're actually not, in a specific and curated language just to fulfill the questions you have in mind. And also, I'm pretty sure some of you have had bad expectation about this tool, but let's hear it from our panelists. So, Sofan and McLean, let me give you a first question. So, can you tell us more about conversational advertising and tell us, does the technology you use in this, such as chatbots, give you good result towards your brand and industry? And are the investment made in this technology really helps to advertise your product or brand? Okay, can we have from Safwan?
Okay.
Can we hear from you?
Hi. Thank you so much. Firstly, I would like to start with a quote from Ernest Hemingway. When he wrote in Esquire magazine in 1935, he offered this advice to young writers. He said, "When people talk, listen completely. Most people never listen."
I see.
From there, you can get to know and understand that what the feedback the consumers give you is of utmost important. Uh, for us in the media industry, chatbot is something that relatively new for us to use because uh, we hardly have a direct interaction with our viewers per
I
se
see.
because we are free to air television. So uh, it's when I got this question, I was thinking, how do I answer you in a more meaningful way? Well, I interestingly enough, we had a trial and see whether our viewers can actually uh, engage us, and it does work. Uh,
Oh,
we
okay.
had a good feedback about our programming. We created a few questions for them to have conversation with us on a trial basis, but the thing is still new for us and something that uh, I'm sad to say that something that a new place for us to explore. So I have not much info that I can do, but it does help us to understand our viewers' pattern definitely.
Oh, I see. I can understand from the media broadcasting fields, you don't really interact, but much more you like you earn your feedback after the broadcast. So you don't really like do like live interaction during the live broadcasting, right?
Yes, no, we don't, but this is something that we are exploring because right now
I
what
see.
is formerly known as the idiot box is now more two-way instead of one-way. Interestingly enough, with the advancement of digital television, we actually can have a conversation with our viewers now. So those are the interesting things that the current development that we can do. For instance, if I know your viewing pattern and I know your habits, I actually can advertise my product or my client's product while you're watching it.
I
Let's say I
see.
know you like certain type of food.
Mhm.
So when you're watching, and I know that you're watching, I actually can advertise that kind of food for you to only you to have a look at
Oh,
it.
I see.
So those are the advancement that we are trying out and we're trying to do so that we can have a better engagement with our viewers on TV.
I see. Compared to the traditional old TV broadcasting, it is more on a one way, but now actually in our online, it's more two way, right? And
Yes,
the communication, the interaction has become more like improve its terms of advertising and also communication. Okay,
yes.
all right. Thank you so much, Sofan. Okay, can we hear from you, McLean, regarding our first question? The technology used, such as chatbots, does it give you a good result towards your field? And are the investment worth it, actually? Tell us.
I think the question of investment and worth really depends on what your field is, what your product is, and what you're trying to do with that chatbot. I mean, the truth that underlies this all is nobody likes talking to a chatbot. Nobody, right? It can be very frustrating. It can be very impersonal. So this, unless you're the type of person who really likes to avoid public contact, the chatbot may not be for you. But they've
Oh, I
started
see.
to proliferate for really important reasons, and that has to do with volume, right? Volume and cost. So
I
if
see.
you're trying to sell a product across multiple markets and you have thousands of inquiries now, it used to be in very early days, someone would come to your shop and you would deal with a question one at a time, and they would come in a very limited format. But now that we're online in the digital marketing space, anybody can pick up the phone and ask a question. It takes
I
them
see.
5 seconds. The point of entry is so easy that the number of inquiries grows. And then dealing with
Okay.
those inquiries is very difficult. So we need to find a way to filter them. And a chatbot can be a really effective way for us to filter the number of inquiries and move people
Oh,
down that marketing funnel in a way that's really productive.
ah,
Right? If you're selling, we're talking about lead generation. So we need to move people down from that into lead generation so we can follow up. Because it may make sense for any one of us to pick up the phone and call Mohammed Hilmi if he wants to buy a car. But if he's asking, why did we change the label on a Coke can? It's not worth our time. So that
I see.
chatbot can act as a good filter. It can also act as a good navigator. And so for a company
I
like Cutter Foundation, for those of you who don't know, is a multi-entity. There's 50 entities at Cutter Foundation, including 8 different universities. research institutes, the Conversational library. We have many, many bits and pieces. So for us, as we're looking at launching a chatbot, it's really about helping people navigate a very complex organization. And we're only navigating to the point where they can find the information they need. But even that becomes very, very complex. So what you find is, due to volume and complexity, the companies that benefit the most, or the marketing and advertising campaigns that benefit the most, are limited in scope or limited in service, like a phone company. The chatbot with your phone company is very clear and easy, because you're asking about billing, you're asking about increase in service, or a limited range of questions on disruption. So it's quite easy to model a chatbot. But if you're asking about what's good for dinner tonight, you're going to really struggle. It's going to be very hard. So nobody likes a chatbot, but in some instances, they can really reduce the noise and move consumers down that marketing funnel.
Mm,
I
I,
want to
I
have to
understand.
agree with you, Mac.
Mhm.
Definitely, I have my frustration doing the chatbot because they have a predetermined question that they put out, and you can't get across. And if you want something else and you're stuck there, you get frustrated and you feel like killing somebody, and then you just switch off and say, "Move on." And okay, where is the person I want to talk to? Yeah, I
Exactly.
agree with you,
There's
Mac.
no nuance at all. There's no
Yeah.
nuance with a chatbot.
I agree with both of you. Chatbots can seem a bit so robotic, and somehow you need a little bit of human touch, right, to interact. That would like understand you more and very specific with what you have, and can read more than just words and also emotion.
Done well.
And
I
that's
mean,
why,
a chatbot can get you two steps through all of the noise and mess, and then you can
yeah, I
have that
agree.
really good personal interaction, and that will reduce the cost per interaction for any company, and that's probably the best you can do.
I do, yeah. At the funnel, you really do. It's like lots of inquiry, and then where you need to go specific, you really you apply chatbots in the first phase, and then more specifically, you get a human to interact afterwards, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Thank you so much, McLean and Sofwan. So now we're moving on to the second question. So I can see your view now on the chatbots. Like you don't really use it because somehow it's very specific and it takes some kind of industry that would really need it. Compared to let's say like Sofwan, who is like in media broadcasting, and he doesn't and don't really do like a constant two-way communication between consumer, and also like McLean, who do more like Qatar Foundation is more like a non-profit organization, right? So can you give us some? Can you enlighten us on some other tools that you would recommend, in contrast to conversational advertising or chatbots, to let's say like handle your inquiries or maybe for recruitment process? How would you like? How which tools would you prefer to use actually?
Safwan, do you mind if I jump in?
No, go
Uh,
ahead, please.
please
I'm
go
I,
ahead.
so I'm old enough, and I would presume Safwan is old enough, that we were around at sort of the birth of the internet, where what was really effective for us were site maps, right? You would go onto a site and you would look down at the bottom and you would track your way through a site. The sites were small enough and
I
structured in a way
see.
that was very clear. You could always find the information you needed, right? That age seems to have come and gone. Chatbots are coming up. I still feel like really good SEO, search engine optimization, and search marketing can be done, in a way that eliminates the need for a chatbot if your organization is very complex. Because again, it comes down to the types of questions I have. I will search a question now. The natural language processing of Google makes it easy for me to search a question like, what's better, Coke or Pepsi? And they'll give me good results coming out of SEO. And failing
I
that, I
see.
may I may just jump onto something like Reddit, right? There's lots of other places to ask complex questions that don't
Mm,
go through this sort of chatbot question. The other drawback to chatbots is I'm not eager to sign up my email every time I log in, right? I don't want to give you all of my data. But
I
SEO
see.
allows me to search very quickly without doing that. So I don't really know what tool works best. I'm not, launching conversational advertising campaigns, but I do
Mhm.
understand sort of the structures within which they work. And I think things like SEO can be fantastic. Sitemaps are still effective and useful. And
Site
just
maps.
sitting down with your team and trying to decide what questions will people have of us, right? It's
I see.
generally we can get to know our consumers that way.
Mac, I think when we had the conversation earlier, you said that the chatbot is a funnel that filters some things, and then you go back to a human element. And that would be the best mix or hybrid that you can have. Basically, if you have a chat box that filters certain things, and then when it comes to more complex question that needs to be answered, then you can direct to a person that can then give the correct answer and all those things. But like you say, the old way of doing it is still for me the best. Maybe I'm too old school to do all this, but chatbot use frustrates me to no end. But I see it has some usefulness that can be, I think it can be refined. It's just that finding the right way or the right things. Definitely, it's not for all industries for sure, because for my industry, I can't see, even when we try it out, that it works to a certain extent, but not all, because people will want to know more, and I cannot have a predetermined question a lot. That will make people frustrated and they will go away. So
I
yeah, I
see.
agree with that. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Thank you so much, Sofwan and McLean. I guess you have more experience in digital marketing, both of you, and I guess you would understand or prefer another like these tools where you can uh, pull consumers or like inquiries in a more effective way, right? Okay. So I would like to ask you. So I'm pretty sure. Uh, Sofwan, is your audiences more international or local?
Oh, I would love to say there are some of them are international because we go on the social media landscape, but for broadcast is meant just for local viewers. But when we put our news on the social media or on YouTube and
Mm,
all that, we do get some viewers from internationally. We do get, but the numbers is not really that big.
I see.
So I can't say much about international viewers and all that, because we are locally based rather than an internet. We are not CNN. We are not broadcast all over the world in that sense.
See, okay. So if I would like to ask is your if you were international, your audiences will probably from Southeast Asia also, right? The neighboring
Yes,
country probably.
yes.
All right.
We do get some spillover from Singapore and Indonesia because of the
Mm,
close proximity.
yes, Indonesia.
Yeah, but that's about it. If I go wider, it'll be just Southeast Asia region.
I see. Okay. How about McLean? I see like Qatar Foundation's nonprofit organization relies on a global support from different countries. Or if you can be specific, where do you like your queries and support come from mostly? Is it just the neighboring country of Qatar, or like do you go even to the Western, to even Southeast Asia?
Well, Qatar Foundation, as I mentioned before, is very complex. And so we have 50 entities, each with their own audiences. And we're a nonprofit, highly education and research focused. So we don't have a lot of direct marketing to be done. So I think it's a difficult one to look at for Qatar Foundation. But because we work across many markets, I think it's easy for us to recognize that it really depends on the tools people are using, right? People in Southeast Asia are using more integrated social media marketing payment systems. I spent
Mm,
more than 10 years in China where people have everything integrated into WeChat or into their WeChat wallet. So your sense of the funnel is very different. We do a lot of
mhm,
work in Europe, which the GDPR rules make it very, very difficult for us to collect or target information past a certain point. So I think that which platform you're using and which
mhm.
platforms in the palm of the hand of your final user are going to determine a lot of sort of the functional aspect of conversational advertising. Right. In Europe, you're not going to get very deep into the funnel. Versus in
I see.
China, you're going to be able to get all the way down to the funnel. You can do a
Mm,
lot of slicing and dicing with data. to look at consumption basket of consumers, right? So I think there's a little bit of targeting and a little bit of familiarity with online payments that will change. Here in the Gulf, in Qatar, I think there's still an opening for online payments and online marketing, but it's
I
still
see.
traditionally been very offline. There's conversation happening online, but payments happen offline. So I think
Offline.
that switch is still happening. So this market is going to be very different from what we see in Asia, and like I said, Europe has a lot of privacy rules that make it difficult.
All right. Thank you, McLean. Do you have anything else to say, Sofwan?
At
More
the
to add?
moment, no.
Okay, so I can see where this discussion is going, and I guess we'll just conclude it. So, with what both of you have said, so what is your take on the future of conversational advertising? I can see it's not applying in your industry, but can you tell me how it's like how the conversational advertising is growing and where and the place that is gonna be more prominent on? Can you tell us?
Uh,
Anyone?
that's a tough one. I think it's more for service industries, like Max say, electricity, phone, water bills, or water department, something like that. Which is,
See.
but I don't know. It's a new territory for me. I defer to Mac for the answers in this.
I feel you've put me on the spot, Safwan, because I'm really I'm really unclear sort of where the future is going for it. The potential for natural language processing and AI is tremendous. I think we shouldn't always try to do too much. I think understanding the pain points of your consumer, it's like focus down on product questions, focus down on exactly what they're looking for, try to anticipate those needs, right? And if you can manage that just by simplifying the funnel, then I think conversational advertising can be very effective. There's a lot of
Mhm.
hype about chatbots. There was a lot of hype 10 years ago that sort of dipped, and it's coming back again. I think that reflects the technology advancements, and we'll have to see where it goes over the next 5 years.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Sofan and McLean. Okay, I guess now we move on to the Q&A session. Uh, okay, give me a moment. I'm reading through the comments. Okay, so here from the chat box. For the chat box, what is the best way to have the human element? Is it through analyzing the frequently asked question? Okay. Will McLean or Sofwan take this one?
Well, for me personally, my experience with chatbot is once you hit the button, like you're asking the same question, then the human element should come in, because then the person who's on the chat is not really going anywhere. You're stuck
Mhm.
somewhere. The chatbot is just repeating, but how can I help you further? You cannot move from that point. So y- that should be a trigger point for the chatbots to direct to a human element. I would say that's the best way.
I see.
I would also say that what do they call it? The uncanny valley is the point
Mhm.
at which the AI gets so good that you can't tell if
Mhm.
you're talking to a human or a robot. And I think that's a death trap. So I think a human element is very clear. So people are with a chatbot, they need to recognize exactly what it's doing. I don't need a chatbot to say, "Hi, how was your day?" I don't need a chatbot to give me a fancy name. I just need the chatbot to act as a filter. And even though that may feel more robotic, as a consumer, I recognize this is a filtration process that will get me to a human at the end, right? If we fall into this valley of, the chatbot has enough AI to sound human, but not enough to sound smart, right? I think that's
Mhm.
a bit of a death trap. So as long
I
as we can
see.
avoid that, don't try to be too friendly, right? Don't try to overdo it. Just give me what I need, right? And I think that'll make it more human. Even if it sounds like we're being more robotic, I think it's more human.
All right. Okay. Give me a moment. I'll look for more questions we have from our viewers in Facebook and YouTube. Okay. Wafa here, we says, "Hi all, I have a question. I wonder what is the difference between social listening in the Middle East and other international countries." Wafa, I think this goes to our next discussion. Currently, we are in conversational advertising. Okay, so Here we have from Tanaraj Murudi. So, with the media landscape evolving constantly, there's always something new to learn for both novice and experienced marketers alike. So, how does the conversational advertising media industry sustain to create awareness, consideration, and conversion productively? Um, can Sofwan or McLean answer to the extent of their knowledge?
Mike, you take this one, Mike.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could answer this one very effectively. I think the difficulty, you know, consulting companies are going to be really effective at this because they see multiple companies facing the same issues. But now, speaking from a corporate side, the hard point is that we've never created a chatbot, or that knowledge and learning is going to be very difficult because you're approaching it always individually. So I don't know, and I'm sorry.
One thing I can input is probably machine learning and data-driven analysis is gonna take chatbots more forward lah. That's what I think. Another thing. Okay. Give me a moment. Let's see if we have more question. Okay. Okay. One more questions. What do you guys think about giving a character to a chat box? Like for example, Air Asia. She is called Ava. Oh yeah. How would you like describe this human characteristic on the chat box? What's your opinion on that?
I
Like
think
we
I
have
just
name.
I think I just answered that one a few minutes
Yeah,
ago. Cutter
I
Foundation
Okay.
is Cutter Foundation is launching a chatbot. We call it Botena. So
Uh-huh.
there's a character to it. My
Mhm.
sense though is it's fine to give it a face and a name, but don't try to make it too human. Right? The minute you try making it too human, it becomes schlocky. I don't know what the right word is, but it feels like you're trying to entertain or you're trying to do something that the customer doesn't want to do. A customer is coming to you with a specific purpose, and that's the purpose of your chatbot.
How about in an advertising and marketing sense? Like this could be like a very good way to promote a brand or the brand image itself. So the
I
help
think
of like this.
I think unless your product is a chatbot, you're probably pushing your investment in the wrong area. If your
yeah.
product if your product is flights, push flights. If your product is service, push service. But the chatbot is a vehicle to get people to that service. So every company is limited in what they can spend their time and money on.
That one I have to agree with. I don't want a fancy name. I just want answers to my questions, and then get what I want. The name doesn't matter in a sense.
All right. Okay. Understandable. Okay. Give me a moment to filter the question a bit. Maybe.
I feel a little
Okay.
guilty here. I feel like we're being ultimately very negative, but chatbots can be effective. They can be useful. They will be important, but it's just focusing on what your customer needs. That's going to help you more than anything else.
Oh, I don't think that's a problem. I think your view and your even if it's negative, it's still something. And coming from an industry expert, it really shows the credibility also. So we don't really mind the negative things. Maybe you look at it at the negative side, but there's also a positive side to it, and it's important to look both ways. Okay, so all right, that's from Rim T. So, are you using social listening to make better marketing decisions for your organizations? Okay, Rim, I'm so sorry. This goes to our next session of discussion. But we'll keep that. Okay. There's two, Wafa and Rim. Thank you so much for the question. I'll keep that for the next session. Uh, Give me 5 more minutes to view everything. If there is no more question, then let me just conclude it and then we'll take maybe a short break, 1 or 2 minutes break, and then we'll start with the next one. Okay. All right. So I guess looking at the chat box, we don't have any more questions relating to conversational advertising. So I guess let me conclude it. So Conversational advertising is the use of chatbots and the automation of the interaction between consumers and brand. And we have insights and views from Sofwan and McLean here, who seems to lean to the uh, n- to negatives, not so negative, but maybe like the view which doesn't see conversational advertising as something that is relevant in their industry, in their respective industry, and we can respect that. And they also give us the illustration of conversational advertising, which can be useful in maybe service industry or maybe like sales, which takes a lot of filtering through the sales funnels, and that's something we can all agree on. Thank you so much, Sofwan and McLean. Uh, okay, a short 1 minute break for a bit. Everyone, please stay tuned because it's just gonna be a short break. Okay, uh, that was good enough break. So let's now begin to the second discussion. Okay, so moving on to the second topic of discussion, which is social listening. Okay, so social listening is tracking social media platforms for mentions and conversations related to your brand, and then analyzing them for insights to discover opportunities to act. The process of social listening fundamentally involves brands to gather complaints, criticism, and feedback from numerous sources and has become a crucial marketing tool in exploring new consumer insights that are effective as materials for advertising and marketing deliveries. Even more, you can build a consumer centric product and services through these insights. Although it is known that we cannot satisfy everyone, we just need to understand our target audience, and these insights from social listening really do come in handy for brands to look ahead. Okay, now Sofwan and Clean, I'm pretty sure this is right up your alley, right? Because Sofwan we have from media broadcasting and really relies on the views and uh, reviews of the audiences. And McLean here from non-profit organization, which also in touch with more social and human interaction as well. So the question here, listening is the new asking, or the changes in social listening are the results of today's increasing consumer power. Can you explain how this concept of social listening is implied in your company? Uh, can we have McLean go first?
Sure. So we're a nonprofit organization, which means we don't talk a lot about market power, but we do have a lot of discussion about market buy-in. And we're in some very sensitive areas like education and the family, which goes right to the heart of social questions. So we're doing a lot of listening, trying to find out how people experience us, what sentiment is changing. So that really matters for Qatar Foundation. And we listen not only in Qatar, but we listen across the Gulf and then in other key markets for us. So we do a fair amount of listening in that sense. And we want to be trying to find out what are the core concerns that people have. I often, a lot of my work focuses on issues and risk to our organization. So I'm trying to look across the horizon and see what are the problems we may face. Or, World Cup is coming up in 6 months. So what can I anticipate will be problems? So we hear a lot of criticism of things like the World Cup. We hear a lot of criticism of workers' rights. We hear a lot of questions about, what will the experience be like? And that isn't directly Qatar Foundation, but it's intimately connected to what we do on a routine basis. So that's really important for us, is to be listening to what people are talking about. And the other side, which is maybe 50 to 75%, is actually trying to find out what's happening in global conversation in technical areas or technical topics. So as a foundation, we work in areas of education. We work in genetics. We work in solar power and green energy. So those topics of conversation are continually evolving, right? And they're evolving through research. They're evolving through investment. They're evolving through conversations, panels, papers. So we're also doing a lot of listening on that side to understand how can Qatar Foundation connect ourselves or participate in or contribute to those major international discussions. So I think we listen on both sides.
I see. Okay. Thank you, McLean. How about Sofwan?
Well, as you know, we are a free-to-air television. That means our revenue rely mostly on commercials or advertising uh, in our programs. So it is key and essential for us to understand what our viewers would like to watch, thus push our ratings to a higher uh, target. And when we then can go back to the markets and say this is the numbers of viewers we have, so therefore you'll be able to spend money on these programs. And but also we can also show the market that who's watching the program per se, and what kind of advertisement they can put on that benefits them. So social listening for us is very key, because we can then understand what the viewers want directly or indirectly, uh, what they would like to watch, what also the marketers would like to put across. So in both sense, it gives us a pattern of viewership, which we then can translate to revenue, and also can translate to our ratings as well. So it's very key for us in that sense, for us to really understand and really listen to what the viewers are saying.
Can I ask a question, Safwan?
Yeah.
So I think there's two angles here. I think for everybody listening, I think the best kind of listening is to go and hug your marketing person, because your price signals from the market are going to be as important or more important than what you listen to on social media. But this question, it says listening is the new asking. So to Safwan, how much asking are you doing of your public audience, and how much listening are you doing?
Well,
Because
we're doing both.
it sounds to me like your advertisers and your viewership,
Mm.
that's listening as well. But do you go to market and ask consumers, what do you want to see? Is it going to be Game of Thrones, or is it going to be the news?
Yeah, we do, Mac. We do ask them question, because from their response to certain programs that we put on, indicates their what they really like. We will test out certain numbers of programs and see their feedback. We ask them via the social media whether that connects with them or not. For example, I we during our first few months of on air, we try a few programs that we bring back the 1980s program that that me and you watch as when we were younger and all that. It happens that they like the thing. They like the 80s program. They keep saying,
Mm.
"Hey, send more, do more." And we ask them what kind of programs that you would like to see more. So, and then we go back to the advertiser and say, "Look, we have a ready-made audience. Although they might be younger generation than they were never there in the 80s, but they're wanting this kind of programs." So bringing back the reruns seems to work for us. So listening to them is key, and asking them is also key, because right now one of our top programs is, I don't know whether you remember this program, Mac. It's called Night Rider. So, so
Very
that
old.
yeah, that came about when we put across the question, what kind of 80s program would you like to have? And they came back. One of the suggestion is Night Rider, and we put, and it's a very high rating for us.
Okay, perfect. So there's a lot of active listening going on as well.
Well, yes, definitely, Mike. Because nowadays, the viewers hold the power to actually change a few things in our lineup, in our programming. I give you an example. We stopped one of a long series from an Indonesian drama series called Putri for Pangeran, because we thought it was way too long. It's 600 series. So we thought we put a break to it, and then put something else. But my God, the backlash we got from them, like, what the hell did you take it out? Put it back. So we know that these people, and then we ask them, can we then put it in alternate weeks? Which they say, as long as you have the program, and we have ready viewers for it. Yeah, asking them and that is key to us as well.
I see. Oh, very interesting take actually. The first part of Safwan's view, I kind of feel like it was more towards number and metrics, but we do want to hear more about active listening, and which you just gave that. And from McLean, I do see your perspective on social listening is more just about more about let's say commercial, but it just goes to the many entities of Qatar Foundation, which you are like to find direction and find development for. I can understand that. Okay, now moving on to the second question. So the internet, especially social media, has changed the consumer power in giving out opinions towards certain brands and products. What are the changes that can be seen in gaining consumers' view and feedback in your industry? Is it good or is it bad? Can you include some situations during and after COVID-19 pandemic?
Is
All
the
right.
consumer is consumer power really changing? If consumer power is changing, how come my bank doesn't listen to me anymore? There's a lot of questions about that statement on its own.
Mhm.
Certainly, the amount of noise has increased. Everybody has an access to a voice,
I
and that's
see.
really, really important. Um, and I think that people use that voice very, very differently. I think,
Mhm.
you know, how you would complain about, comment about, or talk about something online will be something very, very different from how Safwan comments or interacts or engages with something online. So I think that there needs to be a clear understanding of sort of different market segments, different audience segments, um, and then whether that translates into market power or consumer power is a question for me. I think change isn't good or bad; it's just here. We have to deal with it. The biggest change seems to be just noise. There's so much noise right now,
I see.
and it's overwhelming us. I mean, it overwhelms us with the news. We hear a lot about social media destroying the news, but it's,
Mhm.
the number of engagements, the number of decisions people can make every day, the amount of information people can take in. All of these are potential problems for us. So in that sense, it can be a little bit bad, but it's good for everyone to have a voice. Who doesn't like a voice?
True.
I think
Okay.
I think I agree
Uh,
with you on that one, because nowadays viewers are more vocal. There's a lot more noise they create. They can generate waves of noise to support or them in one way or the other. I agree with you. Certain things are good, certain things are bad, and to filter them in a sense whether these people actually are just joining the bandwagon without knowing what they are talking about is also something that we have to look into, because from my experience, when we have a viral news, certain people don't even read that particular news. They just keep forwarding it and they just pushing it to their friends and all those things. But when you ask them whether they actually read and understand the news, they will just say, "Oh, I got it from a friend. I just forward the thing." So then the level of engagement for that particular news is not really there. It's just that it's an in thing to keep forwarding certain news for us. So those are the things that, like you say, a lot of noise. We need to filter that. We need to understand that in order for us to make sense whether it can turn into consumer power or not. I think that's one of the challenges that we have uh, right now.
I
Well,
see.
specific to COVID, one of the things I think has been really effective is a combination of Google tracking questions, concerns, all the information you need about COVID, and then companies catching up on some of that data and making sure that it's accessible on their websites as well, right? And I think that there's a nice combination of the two there. One of the things that we received more than anything else were questions about, our classes continuing? Can I come on campus? What restrictions or regulations are required? Can I come into the country? What happens if I'm traveling? And these
Mhm.
become the sort of specific and easy to answer questions that could be done through a bot if we go back to our conversational marketing, but otherwise can be done through our website. And Google did a great job of indexing some of that. So I think, on specific issues, they can be absolutely, critical for us.
All right. Thank you so much for the view. I see how the consumer power is not really increasing, but the noise and the voice is just becoming more overwhelming. But I can you agree that this the amount of noise and voice that's increasing do have influential power in influencing others actually towards you, your
Okay,
brand
so
image.
speaking from the reputation point of view, I
Ah,
might
yes.
I might back up my statement a little bit. I don't think consumers have the power to create very effectively, right? I think the power to
Okay.
create sits within companies that are offering products and services. I think
Mm,
consumers increasingly have the power to destroy, right?
to destroy.
And
Okay.
that's something that we're listening to very carefully, trying to find out. And it's the volume of noise becomes so big that we're no longer looking at specific tweets, right? We're looking at trend line.
Mm,
But and it's very difficult to capture those lightning in a bottle moments where something will go viral and really damage your brand. But yes, consumers have the power to kill you, right? And have the power to do real damage. But the building is hard. I'm really interested in sort of the programming aspect, being able to change your product as a TV station, change
mm.
the offering. The vehicle remains the same, but the product inside it changes. I think that's really interesting, right? But most companies don't have that flexibility.
Yeah, what I like to share with you guys one incident that we had where back when you said the noise would destroy certain elements of thing that we do or product. I remember when our number one badminton player, Lee Zijia, lost
This yeah.
uh, four games in a row. So
Ah, yes.
we came out with a caption that says, Lee Zijia kalah berpisah tiada, which means that Lee Zijia is synonymous to losing.
Mm,
It's, it's just a caption. My God, the backlash we got from there, we had to pull it out and take out even on our social media platform because the number of hits that we got criticizing and the spam that we had to take it out. But the point is, it's an actual fact. We did not create or we did not say anything that is not factual. But because people is very affectionate towards him, think he's a national hero, saying that he's synonymous to losing is something that we are downgrading him. So there we lost our news story. We lost our footing on that. At certain extent, we lost a little bit of credibility because people think that we are just hitting on the the national player. So that kind of thing made us very very aware and very more conscious in what we put across. Just because like Matt, like what you said, it can actually destroy things what we build.
I agree. And how contagious it is, it's very like it's much likely to be important to be aware of this, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
definitely. Thank you so much, Safwan and McLean. Okay, without wasting more time, let's go to the next question again. Okay, so are there any cultural differences in applying social listening in any of your campaigns? Are there any interesting differences when applying social listening to international audiences? Because I know that some of you, maybe like Sofan, who's more like uh, majority more local, but for McLean, you have more diverse audiences, actually international. So how do you like see the difference here in social listening? And what can you tell us, like in your in Qatar Foundation's view about these different opinions that's coming in?
I think there's a couple of aspects to this, or a couple of angles. I would be willing to bet, and I don't know either of you very well, but I would be willing to bet that I have much more in common over here with Safwan than I do with you, right? Even though we're from different places, right? Where you and me are from different times, right? And both of those things matter. So there's a cultural difference that we tend to overestimate, which is you're in Malaysia, I'm in Qatar or Canada, But there is a whole cultural variation, between us and our parents and us and our children. Right? So I think that
True.
that really matters. So I think we need to be able to divide this into many different ways. Right? Social listening between cultures also requires a good understanding of why people are saying something. The how explicit will people be in criticizing? Qatar Foundation is a nonprofit organization. We're a non-government organization, but we're closely tied to the leadership of Qatar. Right? Our
Mm,
chairperson is the mother of the current emir. His sister is our CEO. Right? So people will not criticize us overly directly. Right? They will criticize in sort of a sideways manner. You'll find a lot of that criticism. When you're in China, you find there's not a lot of direct criticism of the government. There's a lot of implied criticism, right? Or there's ways to talk about an issue without talking directly to the issue. So I think that culturally this matters. So you need somebody who understands the language deeply, right?
very good job.
If you don't deeply understand the language of whether it's Chinese or Arabic or Bahasa, I mean, you may miss the nuance of the criticism if it's not direct. Everybody understands it when you punch them in the nose, but not everybody understands it when they've sort of pricked you and you're going to slow bleed, right? So I think that can be really important, is having somebody who understands the cultural nuance. The tools are the tools. I don't think the tools change. I don't think the tools are very important, but the person operating the tools, right? Do they understand sort of the local poetry, right? Right? Like poetry as a form of protest. Memes, right? What kind of a meme is going to come out of this? Right? Will you understand that? I think that's really really important, and it needs to be market specific. Right? I was in China for a number of years over a time when brands were really struggling. When you run an international campaign, do you put the map of Taiwan on your China map or do you not? Right? And apologize to all of our Chinese listeners here, but that's a critical, difficult issue. Right? We have a lot of European brands that have flown in the face of what China understands, and China flying in the face of what European brands understand. And these things, an international campaign doesn't always work. But your international campaign that's being run in Europe needs to understand that your market in China is also sensitive to what you're doing. So there's a lot of back and forth and nuance there. So the social listening really requires, of course, good collecting of data, but
Mhm.
second, somebody who understands intimately what the market cares about.
I think when you make reference to China, Mike, I remembered when we did a news report on Coke Share a Coke campaign, the one that they did in Europe and in US, totally different than the one they did in China, where they also used the what do you call it, the symbol that the unique symbol base that the China use for them to communicate, and they use that as part of the campaign, which shows that they are very sensitive to the nuances of a different culture. They do not use the same campaign as in Europe and in North America, but they go local and they made a point, and it was a real success for Coke when they did that. So yeah, key of understanding all those things is important for globally. I'm not much of a global player, but from what I have gone through and understand, I think I agree with you in that sense. The tools are just the tools, but you need to understand the differences and make sense of it and to be very successful.
I see. Thank you so much, Sofan and Mac. I see Mac's holistic view on the social listening, whether it's just not a tool, but more, and it takes a different form as well, right? And it takes also an intimate connection with the people that in a different culture also to be able to understand and to to know their body languages and even their body languages and even the subtle things that they give out.
I think any good social listener, and I'm not a good social listener in some sense. Like I follow a lot of the news, but there's a lot of people around me that I'll go to for specific things. Right? So a good social listener has those people they can count on to go and say, what are those people talking about? Especially in a place like Qatar. I need somebody who understands a more conservative element. I need somebody who understands a certain, nationality within Qatar, right? So what's the group of Pakistanis saying? That's a really important thing for us, right? So what are each of these groups saying? And you need to be able to go and listen to them at certain points. I was really guilty of not bullying people during interviews, but I interviewed a lot of people for Ogilvy as I built our social media team. And I was never concerned about the tools, but I wanted to know who had their fingers on the pulse. I would
I
ask
see.
questions like, can you name Kanye's kids? Right? Do you know Kanye West's kids? Isn't an answer to any question that I care about technically. But if you know the name of Kanye's kids, I know that you're spending a lot of time in certain circles online, right? I know that you're spending time on Instagram. I know the types of people you're following, right? So like I would be able to go to them for certain types of questions on the vibe, right? Not on a specific complaint, but just the vibe, right? Or right, and again, I go to certain people within our organization to try to understand what's happening in the Qatari community right now, right? Or even you can slice the Qatari community. Like, what are this group of Qatari men thinking about? Why is this decision getting spoken about? Why are people complaining about this? Right. So good social listening also means getting outside of yourself and identifying the people that you know can help give you that insight. Ideally, we'd all have giant budgets and a panel of people to give us ideas. But in the absence of that, it's people you trust, people who will be honest, and people who each have something different to bring to the conversation.
When I start off as a reporter, uh, being able to type is one of the key things you need as a reporter or shorthand. But nowadays, when I interview people, I will ask them whether they have any of the social media platform, how active they are, whether they use it as a daily tool for them, because there is where all the sources from news come from. They need to be actively in the social media, be able to listen to the social media, what's going happening around them. Only then they can be really an effective reporter or broadcast journalist nowadays. If you don't, if you say, "Oh, I don't have any of the social media," then I won't hire you because you won't know anything. You'll be out and you'll be lost. So I agree with you, man, on that.
All right. I do agree with Mac also. Like, being in PR, you really do have to have the right connections to know the right circle actually, because not everyone will know what those people know, right? And so it's important to do that. Okay, so now we move on. Uh, what are the vital processes in social listening that are implemented for your brand and products? And based on your experience, how do you choose the right tool? Maybe if you don't focus on the tool so much, maybe can you give us like how your implication of PR, maybe your the way you find insights among one organization or between two people. Please, can you give us?
Well, for me, I do look at the tools that's out there because I need to push my news on
Mm-hmm.
different platforms. I discovered for the life of me, uh, I was just grappling with Facebook and understanding it, and then come along Instagram, and now as an old man, I'm trying to, oh, okay, you got Instagram, and then suddenly now TikTok is an in thing in Malaysia. Everybody use TikTok as a platform, so I need to push my news where I have wider reach, and be able to connect with these people, and from there get to listen to what they are saying, and also asking them what we can do better. Currently we are what you call that we identify our platform where our news is best served, and our news have the better reach of viewers, and also how we can then tap uh, this platform to give us the things that we need to further enhance our news. So knowing the right tools for a news person is important, but also making use of it in a more effective way, balance of the thing for us as well.
I see. Oh, McLean, do you have something to say?
Um, I feel like I don't have that much gray in my beard. I keep saying I'm very old, but only feel old because the industry has changed so much. So my very first job in PR, every morning you would come into the office early and everybody would sit around a big table and there were newspapers on the table and you would rip through the newspapers, right?
Mm-mm.
And for us, that was
Yeah.
social listening, right? What was being prioritized in the headline, right? What was under the fold? What's on B2? And we would sit there as a gang and we would rip through the newspapers and be handing out articles to people around the table. Did you see this? What's happening over there? Why is that guy getting quoted over here, right? That was, in effect, that was our social listening. We didn't have sophisticated tools. We had newspapers and we watched
Newspaper.
TV, right? And that was it. The new tools are getting better. They're getting more specific. You know, we've moved from sort of Boolean search to natural language processing, right? To get better at targeting, to be able to filter out the noise. But the same process still exists. And when I'm training somebody new who's coming aboard with us on social listening, the hardest thing to train is what we grew up with. Sort of that discipline of 7 a.m., I want that report on my desk. What's happening today, right? You show up, you have to grind through it and give it to me. It shouldn't take you more than an hour. Tell me what's happening. And then you need to be checking in on a routine basis, right? So that's the fundamentals, is the discipline of every day looking, trying to get a feel for the signal. And somebody who's been in the industry or somebody who's been in the media for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, they'll notice small changes, right?
Mm-mm.
Those small changes in who's getting a quote or which company's moving up and which company's moving down. I think the experience comes with time, but the process was just grinding. Social listening isn't a fun dip in, dip out kind of an exercise. It's
Right.
a baptism, right? And you go through it. You might spend 2 years where your job is to be the guy at the bottom end of the totem pole, trying to collect all the data, just bathing in it, right? And then over time, you'll sort of move away to, I think, more active roles. There's
I
also,
see.
if I could, we're talking about social media listening in a very broad sense of all day, all the time. There's a second thing that really matters to us, and that's in the event of a crisis or an issue. So if you're working at Petronas
Definitely.
and if you work at Petronas and there's a rig fire, or if there's an accident, we go through specific routine training on listening in the event of a major crisis or people injured, right? Because there you're doing two things. You're both managing message, but also gathering information, right? And social listening then becomes very targeted, very specific, and very intense. So you start to get a lot more people involved. The tools start to become much more targeted and specific to keywords around an event, and that then connects in very tightly to your messaging, your media team, and everything else.
I see. That's a very active way of social listening from McLean. Sofwan, can you give us like a bit of specific tool that you use during your broadcasting to identify this, uh, the tools that you use to for those social listening to identify those insights?
Well, we normally uh, use nearly all that is available to us simply because as a news organization, we need to look at a broader sense to pick up certain things that is being put out across. I remembered when MH370 was lost. There's a lot of things that was going around in the social media, and we are picking up the things, and we need to then be able to understand whether that is fake news, whether that's credible. We need to filter it in that sense. But just to limit to one for us as a news organization would not be practical. We need to see and report the spectrum of what is being put out there, picking it up and going back and filtering it and see uh, what we can use and what we can't use. Go back and find out, ask questions. I remembered when I was when at that time and during that crisis, there was a news about they found a door of the airplane, and I quickly turned around and asked my that time producer, why didn't we get that news? He said, we are verifying whether that is true or not, uh, because it's only on one platform. It's not all over yet. Then when the thing went viral because people are pushing it, that particular news, they said it's all over the place now. So why don't we have it? my producer insisted, we need to check because right now there's a lot of fake news being out there. And I'm happy to say he did the right thing. He actually found that that's a fake news. And thank God we are the only station that didn't put that out and say that,
Mm,
they found the door for the aircraft. But uh, for us in news, we have to look at everything. Uh, we do select what we put our news on,
mhm.
but we take everything from other platforms to look at. We can't just pick one or two because then we'll miss out a certain key information regarding what's happening around the world.
I see referencing. Okay, looking at the time, I feel like I should wrap it up. But thank you so much, Sofwan and McLean. Uh, I feel so overwhelmed by the experience you told to me. Me being just a student with no experience, the way you like execute your PR strategy and collecting insights, it's definitely something that's new to me, and I haven't been living long enough to to understand that. Okay.
Having
Now
just
moving
made
on.
me very old.
No. Okay, so I guess we just move on to the Q&A just to wrap it up. Okay, so here we have from Wafa. Hi all, I have a question. I wonder what is the difference between social listening in the Middle East and other international countries. I think this question really goes to McLean.
Yeah.
McLean, can you answer?
Um, I think part of it's platform related. So what we see a lot in the Middle East, although it's changing quite quickly within the, I shouldn't say Middle East. So we categorize ourselves as the GCC, sort of the Gulf countries, and there's a very distinct sort of an environment within the Gulf countries. Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, Saudi, right? And so I think the tools people are using are different. It was when I arrived 6 years ago in Qatar. It was very much around Snapchat, and it's migrating now. So I think tools matter. I think the way people speak in the GCC is also very different from, let's say, in Egypt, which is much more rambunctious, much more rowdy, much more full of fake news, much more
Mhm.
campaigning, right? So I think that there's a cultural differences even within the Middle East, and I don't know if your map of the Middle East includes Turkey, right? And different every company has a different acronym now for which countries they consider the Middle East, but I think that's very different. And other international countries, like I said, in Europe, it's quite a bit different. People are much more active on Twitter. Twitter is a
Mhm.
platform for criticism, but also I think there's not the same level of, I don't want to call it knockdown, drag them out criticism. But in Europe,
Mhm.
what we're getting isn't a lot of sort of insulting or trolling. It's a lot more in depth. You get a lot more threading of comments and commentary. And what you see in other countries in Asia, we had a big problem with memes. When we were facing any sort of crisis, we would just get memed to death. People were hilarious. We would sit there in the office laughing all afternoon about people who were criticizing our own brands, right? Because there was, when you can't be direct, you start being indirect, and then you can start being very, very funny. So it's sort of those memes start to proliferate and grow. We don't see so much of that right now in the Middle East or in the GCC, but that could change.
I see. That's a very apparent differences actually from Europe and Southeast Asia, where people are more serious there, and then in Asia they are more like memes. Okay, I think that's a very good take. I think we have a next question from Rim. So, are you using social listening to make better marketing decision for your organization? Sofwan, can you take this one?
Of course, definitely. We do. uh, because we are what you call it, viewers driven, rating driven. So we need to ensure that our market understand the program that we put on attract viewers, attract the ratings that we have. Uh, so in listening to them, then we know what to put on, what kind of movies that they would like. Believe it or not, Piramli movies are still a hit in Malaysia. I'm not sure whether you know Piramli Mag is is in 1960s we have this filmmaker who's very legendary in a sense. His movies are a hit since 1960s until now. Even we repeat counters of time, there are still people watching it. Whenever we put that across, we have high ratings, we have high commercials, and all that. So yeah, listening to them make us better decision in getting our revenue and also in our ratings as well.
I
I'm
see.
really interested in why Malaysia has such a fondness for old movies, but I love it. I love it. I think, and this is really interesting, being on with Safwan is that direct connection exists for you between the market and the consumer,
Mhm.
right? So your marketing team are the ones that are building a product every single day,
Yeah.
right? And social listening for us is only a small piece of a much bigger marketing kind of an organization, right? So we can't react very quickly. Social media listening is just a small element of it or a small piece of it. But I love the TV model, right? Being able to listen and know, and then see the results right away, because within a few days you're able to tweak and make changes to your product.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good thing and a bad thing. Like we get hammered as well sometimes when we we put the wrong thing on, and of course it's always a learning curve for us to understand what our viewers' patterns are. Sometimes we thought that the movie would be great, and it turned out we were wrong. Maybe we are listening to the small numbers, and sometimes we make decision based on what we feel is out there rather than in totality. So we are learning. Hopefully, from the things, the data that we collect, we can make better informed decision.
Okay, true. Thank you so much, Sofwan and McLean. And now we have our next question. So we have one from YouTube. Anas is asking, what is the difference between social listening and social media monitoring? Uh, can McLean give us
I,
your
th- I think we're using them quite
interchangeably?
interchangeably here. So I don't think
Mhm.
we're using it that specifically. Some social listening, sort of in the marketing space, can be heavier investment, more specific going to market. But everything we've talked about in this conversation has really been the social media monitoring more than anything else.
True. Uh, okay. I think one of our lecturers asked questions during the conversational advertising discussion, but I think we missed it out. Can I bring it up here? So our Dr. Hasrina asked that currently there is a lot of chatbot being integrated in WhatsApp, FB Messenger. There are number of there are a number of chatbot software such as Chatfuel and ManyChats. Are we still saying chatbot is not effective?
I hope we didn't use that language that it wasn't effective. I think I was critical of chatbots in our early conversation. It's
Mhm.
very early morning here, so I'm going to have to sort of rewind and go back. But I think chatbots are effective at helping people enter the funnel and to filter
Mhm.
noise, right? And I think that's what's most effective for a chatbot. But the sort of end of the funnel, when we're talking about conversion or we're talking about long-term affinity, I think chatbots can be. I mean, I don't have the data. My personal sense or feeling is that it would be almost destructive in a sense. So entering the funnel, it may be critical. We absolutely need it simply due to the volume of noise, but
Mhm.
only in certain circumstances.
But
All
I
right.
have to agree with you, Matt. I mean, my personal experience using the chat box, after a while, it gets very frustrating when you don't get the answers that you want, and the predetermined question that they have in the chat box limit your ability to convey what you want to ask in a broader way, and then you get frustrated. I think that's why I said if they can create where you have an option to go to a human element when you get certain level, then that would be great. Like you say, when you enter, you limit the noise, and then when you go deeper, then you can be able to interact in a better way. If the chat box can do that, like you say, then uh, chat box will be a great thing.
Mm. I do agree, especially in negotiating, we wouldn't rely on chatbot as well, right? Okay. I think this is will be the last question that we take for the night, and then I will just wrap it up. Okay. So, how do you handle or overcome comment noise from the netizens? Netizens means people who use the internet that shows or portray bad image of the company.
I think haters are going to hate, right? Is that the is that the language we're going to use? You can't
Mhm.
convince somebody, and you can't silence somebody who has the intent and the motivation to damage your brand, right? What you can
Mhm.
do is address, understand, and try to move forward on issues where they have something that's legitimately a complaint and where we have legitimate control over it, right? And that's something that I think we can do. Um, we we don't respond to, if Hilmi decides he's going to slag us online, we'll never respond to him, right? We may respond to his issue, but we'll never respond to him. And
Mhm.
that becomes a way for us to avoid getting into, this idea of punching down, right? It's very easy for any one of the millions of people online to pick us because we're a big organization and to fight against us, because if they win, that's amazing. If they lose, they've lost nothing. But for us as a big organization, to get into a
Mhm.
fight with them, it's lose lose. If we beat them, we're bullies, right? We're punching down, right? And if we don't beat them, well, we've just damaged ourselves. So we do address, and you must address specific issues, or try to deflate specific issues if they're long term and lagging issues. But that's the best you can do. Don't get into a fight with them. They'll be funnier than you. They'll be faster than you. They'll be more motivated than you, and they don't have any bottom line. But your organization probably has a bottom line.
Yes, agreed, Mike. I mean, from personal experience that we had, those people who doesn't like you, no matter what you say. You try to address the issue as the best you can, answer what you can in a more general way. Do not get to pick a fight with somebody. They have more friends than you. They can they can create waves that sympathize with them. Like you say, you, as an organization, you always seem to be the big one that bullies on the smaller people. So you address the issue at hand and leave it at that. In the end, if you persevere and you answer it well, uh, you will come out better. But if you pick up a fight with anybody, the netizen, you're definitely going to damage yourself badly.
I agree. Okay. I guess without delaying any further, I guess that would be it for the second topic of discussion. I am so sorry for those of you viewers who already written your chat, but this will be the end of it. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Now moving on. So I guess we are at the end of our webinar tonight. So on behalf of the community here tonight, I would like to say thank you to our panelists, Mr. Sofwan and Mr. McLean, for giving us a very insightful discussion for the audience watching from Facebook and YouTube. So we are grateful for the knowledge and experience you have shared here. And uh, these things that you have shared here will be useful for all of us. Even if we are in a different field, uh, it will bring us benefit for all of us. So I want to wish you good evening, and once again, thank you so much for being here tonight.
So thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
Mm,
Nice meeting you, Mike. Maybe we should have coffee one day. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's really been a pleasure.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Helmi, and thank you, everyone.
thank you so much, Noah.
Right. Take care.
All right, okay, so not so fast. Before we end this webinar, we would like to ask all of you who are here to fill up our feedback form in the link on the chat box, or you can scan up the QR code on the screen here. So the form should not take you more than 3 minutes to fill, and we appreciate your response to improve on our future work. Or if you have missed it, our team will surely email it to you as well. All right. I hope all of you are still here. And I know tomorrow we have work, but this is the closing for our webinar. So I want to say special thanks to USM for all allowing us the time and space to organize this webinar. And also to everyone here tonight who is watching all the way from their home country. We appreciate your attention and participation. Hope you have a good rest of your evening and see you next time. I'm Muhammad Hilmi and I will be signing out. Thank you so much. Goodbye.